Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for tuning in. My name is Abbesi Akhamie, and I'm a Nigerian-American writer, director, and producer, and I'm your host today. I'm going to be speaking with the wonderful Rockyatu Otoo. He's the star of the documentary short film, Bronx Princess. So happy, and thank you so much for joining us. Just to catch everyone up, I'm going to read through her bio, and then we can get into the discussion. So it reads, Rockyatu Otoo is a Ghanaian-American educator, meditation teacher, and writer who continues to display her versatility and passion with each project she takes on. In education, she leads instruction for K-6 students at an all-boys elementary school in the South Bronx. She is passionate about working with immigrant families and scholars as a way to give back to her community. In media, she stars in the viral YouTube show, The Grapevine TV. The series curates opinions from millennial voices on contemporary social and cultural topics and boasts nearly 40,000 subscribers. While she is not teaching and speaking, Otoo is dedicated to maintaining her wellness and spends time writing about mindfulness and leading meditations with her business, the Aligned Voice Company. So yes, we want to hear more about that too. And so, again, just to catch everyone up, Rockyatu is the star of The Bronx Princess, and it follows a headstrong 17-year-old Rocky at the time as she leaves behind her mother in New York City to reunite with her father, a chief in Ghana. By confronting her immigrant parents' ideas of adulthood during her tumultuous summer between high school and college, Rocky must reconcile her African heritage with her dream of independence. And this film came out in 2009, and the filmmakers are Musa, Syeed, and Yoni, Brook. So we thank the filmmakers for sharing the film with us. So yes, so let's get into some of these questions. So first off, I love the film as someone who is Nigerian, American. I guess, resonated with it right off the bat. And also with the film being in New York and growing up in New York, I just love New York City. So it's just wonderful to see a young Black girl in this role and part, and I felt very interested in your story. So thank you so much for, sharing, sharing this very important journey of a young woman's life and that transition. So I guess a lot of people might be wondering, how old were you when you began filming, and what was the filmmaking experience like for you?
I can definitely share. My pleasure. So we started filming when I was 17, and it was my senior year of high school. So you can imagine I had a lot of things going on. There was prom, there was graduation. I was the star of the high school musical at the time. So there were a lot of things to wrap up my time as a high school student and go into college. And so that experience meant that everything that I was doing to transition and go to college was being filmed. So if you can imagine, I was going to Best Buy to buy things for my college dorm room, and they were with me. I was going to Costco to pick up things to take with me to campus. They were filming. So all of those moments, they came to prom with me. They rode in the limousine on the way to prom. All of those moments that involved every high school student's joy of being a senior and that bittersweet moment of transitioning into the crazy world of college, I could say that those were on film, and those were awkward moments because people were not used to seeing someone being filmed all the time. And because it was a documentary and because they had to get a lot of footage, they came a lot of places with me. So while I forgot that they had cameras because we developed a relationship, I could see how people looking from the outside in were confused. Who is this girl? Why are there cameras with her? And you can imagine my first time on campus, they were also with me. So it kind of interrupted my ability to introduce myself on my own because I became known as that girl who came to campus with the cameras.
Mm. How long? So this was going on like roughly for like a year, you would say?
Yes, about 9 or 10 months, you can say. We started filming around June of my high school year. Well, a bit before that, actually. We started filming a bit before that, and then I was transitioning that summer. And so they were with me the year earlier in the year. I could say maybe January, and then all the way through when I actually moved onto campus, which was August. So you can imagine how much time we spent together.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, how did they find you? What was the process like for you to actually be like, did they just find you and be like, hey, we want to make a film about you? How did that work?
The origin story for Bronx Princess is very interesting. And I can say it is because of my mother's charisma and her natural just abilities to pull people in. And so, as you could see in the film, she started a business. She was, living her dream of being an entrepreneur. And there were two NYU film students who were doing a piece about it was kind of like an art installation across the street from my mother's store. And it was about a Muslim graffiti artist. So they were doing a piece about that, and they would come into my mom's store, use the restroom when they needed, talk to her, charge their batteries. As you can imagine, if you're filming far away from where you're from, you need to make relationships in the community. And so my mom was one of those people they developed a relationship with. And then in those exchanges, I began to see two guys that started coming to the store. And I'm like, I don't know who these guys are, but my mother makes friends often. So I'm not surprised she has some people who are different and interesting who are attracted to her. She's that type of personality. And they could see our interactions when I would come to the store. It would be right after school. I would sit and help out before going home to do my homework. And so they could see our interactions were tough. They could see that it was an interesting moment for me. I told them that I was graduating from high school. I was going to college. I was really excited about that transition. And I believe in getting to know my mother and getting to know me. They could see that there was a story there, that this moment in my life was never going to happen again. And it could be filmed in a way that could help a lot of people understand what it means to come of age when you are of two different cultures. And they took that opportunity to ask myself and my family if this is something we could do. And my parents said yes. And so I also agreed to go along with it.
Wow, that's an amazing origin story. Um, yeah, I like how it was very community based, like your mom, which I totally agree. She's someone who's very charismatic and, reminds me of like an auntie who's like, hey, what are you doing over here? How's it going here? What's going on? And they're just always knowing what's going on with people that look like them and people who don't look like them. So that's very nice. Are you still in touch with the filmmakers?
We keep in touch here and there. As you know, life has moved so far. They're both married with kids, with houses, with mortgages. When I met them, they were film grad students. So as like you can tell, life has moved very quickly for all of us. And so we've kept in touch here and there. We're still connected on social media. I go to their film premiere. The last film premiere that I went to was their Son of Sacrifice. It was about a Sudanese Muslim in Minnesota. It was a beautiful, beautiful film. So I keep in touch. I continue to support their film projects. They have supported artistic projects that I've done in the Bronx. So we keep in touch with each other's lives in that way.
Mm. So so everybody knows, where are you right now? Where are you based?
I'm still in the Bronx, New York City.
And what's your, what are you doing and what are you working on now? As far as like projects and things like that.
So now I have transitioned into a career in teaching. And what that means is my daily life is filled with, young people and, you know, the hustle and bustle of leading instruction and being an intellectual authority. I have also continued my work really focused on wellness and really focused on understanding our minds. And that means that I have transitioned into leading meditations, instructing people on mindfulness. And as my knowledge has grown about the benefits of wellness, I've also taught that to adult audiences and to young people. So I can say that my work has transitioned from artistic, where I was formerly leading projects that were about intergenerational dialogue. I led a mural project in the South Bronx called A Love Letter to Our Mothers. And it was a group of young people who watched Bronx Princess, and they created an art mural not too far from me about that project with their mothers on the wall. And so that was a project that was really community-based, artistically inclined, and really about first generation relationships with parents. And I can say that I extended that with my work with students. I realized I really loved working with young people. I've always loved reading, writing, and understanding instruction. I've always loved school. So teaching came as a natural transition to the work that I was doing with students in the community. And because many of them are of immigrant backgrounds, I feel that there's so much that they can learn from understanding how to navigate who they want to be with who they currently are, with who their parents say they should be. So teaching gives me an opportunity to combine all of those things that I love and do it on a daily basis with an audience and families that are just like mine.
Wow, that's amazing. When was the mural?
That was in 2014. We were able to finish the mural, and it was an amazing community funded project at the time. So it was entirely off of my own grants, donations, and it was a really great opportunity to connect with other first generation students and community members living nearby. They went home and they interviewed their mothers about how their experiences were, and they came back and they created this amazing design. So I could say that that was one of the most impactful projects that I was able to lead based on Bronx Princess here in my community in the Bronx. And so transitioning from that, I wanted to continue that work with students in a way that was really impactful.
Wow. Yeah, I just love how this film in particular has just blossomed. And so I want people to know, like, it just started, of course, there was so much work put into this one thing. So it started off as like a smaller thing, but also big in and of itself, because it takes a lot of work to make a film. But then it's blossomed into, you know, reaching murals and reaching other people who have similar immigrant backgrounds and connecting the community in that kind of way. And so, yeah, I love that about the film, which is new knowledge to me as well. And also too, just with, I remember reading too that the filmmakers, Musa, Syeed, and Yoni, Brook, they're also from different communities as you are, and just all this coming together and working together. And the theme, or I think a common denominator, is, you know, kind of the other in a way, you being from, you're Ghanaian American, and one person, if I was reading, Musa is Muslim and Yoni is Jewish, and different heritages coming together and kind of telling this story. And like I was saying earlier, I feel like a lot of people can just relate to it. So that's just so wonderful. And who knows what'll happen in the future, and like how the ripples will continue to go on and on and on. So yeah, with that being said, I'll jump back into the film because I can go off on a bit of a tangent. What was the film's reception like? And what was the film's reception like for you as a young person, teenager at the time? And then once you answer that, we'll probably bring it back to what do you think about that today as an older, young woman?
Mm-hmm. I can say the film got a lot of really great praise. We did a lot of film festivals. It was my first time going to Lincoln Center and really, you know, meeting people in the theater. And I could say that it was the first time we watched it together as a family. I really understood what the story that they were telling. And I really understood from an outsider's perspective how they could see so much impact in my own story. So when it first came out, a lot of people were excited about it because you could not find this type of narrative anywhere in the cultural lexicon. You could not find anything about a first generation young Ghanaian American woman coming of age. It just did not exist. And there were many coming of age films. There are many coming of age films with Black women characters. One of my favorite films is Just Another Girl on the IRT. And I can draw parallels between that film, Just Another Girl on the IRT, to Bronx Princess, because you see and understand what it's like to live in the inner city as a young Black woman. Because the medium is different, of course, the character is a film character in Just Another Girl on the IRT, and Bronx Princess is actually my life story. I can say that so much of growing up in New York City and the parallels between just even riding the trains, living in an urban environment, I can see so many parallels with that. But there was never a story that existed that was in the documentary film space. I can also draw and reference Nikayatu Jusu's African Booty Scratcher, because that's another film that talked about similar things, coming of age for a first generation African woman. But again, no one was really tackling this issue and this topic in the documentary space. So the reception was really, really excited because they were like, we have a real life figure, you know, and you can imagine a lot of people were excited to meet me. A lot of people were excited to meet my mother. They loved my mother. They loved my father. And they just could not get enough of our family. They found our family story really, really interesting because they couldn't imagine how people who were just living in the Bronx, New York, going about their lives, had this entire world available to them. And so you could also see how the immigrant story and some of the things that are hidden between what you leave in your home country and what you bring here can inspire a lot of people. There are people in New York City who become cab drivers, or, you know, they sell halal food, but back home, they have a completely different role and they have a completely different life. And so you can see how many people in an American context were so excited about that. They're like, she's actually a princess, right? They could not believe such an ordinary person living an ordinary life could have such an extraordinary heritage and experience. But they also could not understand some of the dynamics between my mother and I. They could not see how, from a story about a family that worked hard to provide for their daughter and make a life here, there could be disruptions in that relationship. So they could understand that, you know, the immigrant lifestyle, the immigrant story, coming here for a better life, coming here to make opportunities, but they could not see how I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to be the product of two different worlds. I didn't ask to be pulled into this equation that meant that home was so different. Home was many different places. So it was through me that many people began to understand that you could have the product of first generation, second generation kids who feel very conflicted about where they're from, about who they are. And that could create a lot of tension in their relationship with their parents. So it was about understanding heritage, but really finding a voice to articulate the places where there are discomfort. So the reception was mixed. On the one hand, they loved my family. They loved our story. They loved everything about where we were from, who we were, how I interacted with Ghana, even the funny moments. On the other hand, they couldn't quite grasp and understand the dynamics of a teenage daughter and her mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just, I have like a couple of points running through my mind. But I feel like there's also universality in that the mother-daughter relationship, the father-daughter relationship, like a lot of people can relate to not always getting along with what your parents are saying or doing. But what makes your story so unique is that, like you're saying, we haven't really seen before in the documentary space, specifically a Ghanaian American, because we've seen like coming of age, maybe with mother and daughter in those disputes. Like I'm thinking of Lady Bird, which was like a narrative film by Greta Gerwig. And so I feel like too, it's important to say that people can relate to your story, and you don't necessarily have to be like a first generation or second generation person, but then that kind of connection we have to our parents and growing up and leaving, I think a lot of cultures and people can relate to. So that's what I like to find when I'm watching a documentary, is the universality in it. And then also too, like, as you said, your family is just wonderful and so loving. Like I could feel the love in the film. When your mom was at your school, your college, university, and she was like crying, and she was like, I was like, oh my goodness. It was so moving and touching, because I don't know if you've ever seen that side of her or if she ever showed that to you. But then I guess at the premiere, seeing it, wow, like my mom crying about me going off to school, like she's cared all along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was that like? what was that like when your family like saw the film? Did they feel like this was an accurate portrayal and this is the story? Of course, it wasn't the story that you all wanted to tell necessarily because you weren't the filmmakers, but what was your parents' reaction when they saw the film?
I can say that my mom felt really vulnerable because I had never seen my mother cry before watching her on film. That's not something that I saw. So I can say that we all understood our emotions and how we were feeling in that time, though we never had a conversation about that. And we all felt very exposed, right? Because we let America into our living room. And so I can say the experience was really, it was exciting to be brave enough to stand in who we were and stand in our light as a family together. And I can really lean on the example of my mother and father of how to handle when a lot of people know your story, how to handle your story with grace and with ease. And I learned that from them. So there's nothing that was in the film that I could say I was upset about or that I could say was difficult, because everything you accept about yourself is who you are, and cannot be used to diminish you. That's Audre Lorde. So I can say that because I saw the example of my father and my mother being exactly who they are, standing in their truth, and very many moments where they asked my mother questions about her upbringing, about her not finishing school, about her journey from being a Ghanaian woman to being an American business owner. I can say that honesty, that vulnerability, and the ability to just be entirely who you are and accept all of who you are, that was an incredible example for me. And that gave me everything I needed to know that my family and this story that was told exactly from their perspective could be used to inspire many other people. And that alone, having the responsibility and just the job of doing that could be considered the biggest blessing of all. So if there are flaws in the narrative, or there are flaws in the storytelling, that could be addressed by simply having the opportunity to have some of the most special moments with my family on film, and seeing my father jogging, seeing him worshiping Allah as he loved him so dearly, seeing my mother understand her religious background. All of those things are really, really important to me now as a woman in the way that I walk through the world. So I can say their example is the reason why I'm able to stand firmly.
Mm. And you were saying, so if we can talk a little bit more about that and how you, Rocky as a young grown woman compared to Rocky as a young woman, teenager then, and what's been your reaction watching this film again compared to when you were younger?
Mhm. Because I am now so much deeper in my faith as a Muslim woman, I can see different parts of the film in new ways. So I can interpret my father's role in the mosque in the film in a different way. I can also understand the things that my mother is talking about in terms of blending religious backgrounds in a new way. There are subtleties in the film that I can see now that I couldn't see when I was younger. When I was younger, I could see myself, I could see my mother, I could see my father and the relationship with my family. But now I can see so many nuances about how they were actually able to build and survive what we know are challenges to living in America and challenges to living in the Bronx, New York. Now I can see how they withstood those things. Now I can understand what their defenses were to withstand living in an impoverished community, to withstand living in a community and living in a country that was unkind to immigrants, to withstand becoming a Black person upon coming across on that plane and living with American racism. Now I can understand all the things that they did to shield me from those experiences and how they protected themselves and their sense of self-worth as a result of that. And that is not something that I was looking for or that I could see when I first watched the film in my teenage years. And so it's a big part of my personality now. And I can see how so much of their tools are part of my own toolbox and my own ways of survival.
Mm-hmm. And I think just in those sentences, the statement that you said, I think that that's really important for people that are coming after you and after us. And that conflict, which I think is evident across the board, you know, whether your family's from Ghana or whether they're from China or their parents all have their expectations for their children. There's going to be some clash. And I think it happens at that moment. It's very natural for it to be happening at that moment, which the film portrayed for you, like 18, 19, 17 to 20, let's say. And so I just wanted to highlight what you said for people that are watching this that are in that age group right now. They may be transitioning into college or trade school or doing a gap year or something like that. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I think there's advice in the way that you said that, so that people know that, you know, these things are normal and they happen. And there's more to learn as we're all going on our journey. So when you're in your 30s, you'll see yourself completely different than how you were in your 20s or late teens. And I guess that's every parent's like crowning moment. They're like, yes, now you get it, why I was doing these things and how it was protecting you. Because when we're young, we just can't see it like that. So yeah, I'm just kind of paraphrasing or trying to paraphrase what you're saying, because I know that there are young teenage boys and girls who are going to be watching this and being like, you know, Rocky, she gets me. She understands what I'm going through. And they'll also see your revelations as well as an older Rocky. So I just love that. Did you want to add anything on to that? Like if you were, I guess, speaking to someone from the community who's having, you know, similar experiences that you did when you were a teenager. what might you say to them, if you want to add on anything to them?
I can. Independence is so important to me and an important part of the film. And I can say now as an adult that there's no independence without dependence. And so in the film, I'm so concerned with just being able to get out on my own and become who I am and finally break free and have an opportunity to be by myself, with myself, and exactly be who I am. And I can understand that for those that are going through that experience in this very moment, it can feel so limiting when you feel as though the people closest to you, your family, cannot understand what you truly desire, cannot understand why your desires are really important to be met at the time. And I can say that it's important to strive for those things, that your desires are important. So if there are young people who desire to be independent, to live on their own, to have a wonderful career, to move out of their communities, all of those desires are important desires and they should be taken seriously. As my family, as you see in the film, my family and I are having that battle between me trying to make my desires as important to them as they are to me. So I can say the young people should take the things that they want right now. The things that they desire right now are important, but they should not hold on to how they get those things. Right. And so the things that you want for yourself at 17, 18, 19, and 20, they don't change, but the way that you get them will change. The way that you go about getting the things that you want will change. And so your vision doesn't change, but you can be flexible in how you achieve those things. So the road to independence, as I've learned, takes a lot longer than I originally imagined at 17. And so the road to being a fully realized person, I still have that same desire that I did at 17. I still have that same fire that I did at 17 to lead, to be an inspiration, to be independent, to help people. All of those things haven't changed, but I can be flexible to the ways that life teaches me how I can best get those things. And I can make sure that my ethics and my character is what is being maintained as I get those things. So if young people are watching, you can get all of the things that you desire. You can have everything that you want, but you can also understand that your character and the way that you behave is going to determine how those things come to you and how you keep them.
There it is, very powerful. And I'm just thinking of something that your father said when you guys were in the car, and this is in the film, and he's saying to you, he was like, I love like your charisma, I love how you are, and all these things like that. I can't remember exactly what he said now. It was so good, but he didn't spell. I just understood what he meant, and I feel like it relates to something you're saying now. I just can't connect it very well. But do you remember what he was saying in the car to you? He was saying how he
loved
liked
my integrity
about you because you were like laughing, joking with him about how he said something.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, I like all these wonderful and great things about you, but this part or something you can work on or something like that.
Yeah, he was saying that he loved my integrity. He loved who I am and how I communicate and how I do things. But he also was telling me that I cannot really have integrity if I mock my beginnings. And that's what I was doing. I was mocking him a little, jokingly and funnily, as we all do. And, mocking the way that he said things was funny to me then, and still is a little bit funny now because it was not an avocado, it was a papaya. So it's still funny. It's still funny to me now that I feel like I should have won that argument, right? And I can still see the part of my mind that found that funny because that's not how you say it. It's actually an avocado. But I can also see what he's saying, which is like, you cannot have pride and shame a certain part of who you are, right? And I couldn't adequately say that I was, this proud Ghanaian woman and then laugh when there are simple language mistakes that are made like that. I can't say that because that pride then is not rooted in the right things. So while I can laugh about the mistake now, what he's really talking about is whether or not me laughing was really from a place of pride or was it from a different place? Like I know so much more about what it is to speak English and be American that I can correct you about something, right? And that is what he could feel that's what he felt in that moment. And he wasn't happy about it because he's like, yes, you actually do know more about what it is to be American. You do know more about English, but you can't correct me because I didn't suffer through being teased for my accent for years. I didn't suffer through being called African or whatever names they called early African immigrants. I didn't suffer through that. I glided through the cultural, I would say like grace of being born into an American culture. I never had the shame of speaking English with a different accent. So I can understand what he was feeling in that moment, but I can also say for the record, it was a papaya and he said an avocado.
Yeah, no, and I hope people are getting that. There's what we see at the surface level, but then there's something deeper underneath. And I feel you as an older person now, you can see both of those things. You see what's at the surface level, which is like and you also go deep and you see what he was really saying and what he's trying to say. And I just, it's so great talking with you because you're older now. And I think for the people who are watching the film who are in your shoes, who are 10 years younger in their teens, 17 to 20, hopefully they can get something from what you're saying that you're going to change. Between now and 10 years, there's going to be a lot of changes and you may even start to see what your parents have been saying, what they've been talking about, what they've been trying to instill and teach you. And with the culture and all those things, you may even, come to love and appreciate, your parents' culture, which is also a part of you. So I was writing down what you said. You cannot have pride without having integrity. Is that what you said?
Yes.
It's all connected. So I hope we're making sense here. But yeah, I guess, are there any other pertinent things that you would want to share with people, knowing that this is going to be an educational resource, and this is going along with the film? Are there things that you would want people to know, or to remember as they watch the film?
Yes, I can see, and I've spoken to so many students and families about this film, and I can see, and I've heard so many stories about how this film has created conversations between family members that haven't spoken, family members that, have had very tense relationships. And I can just say that if you make room for healing these relationships, then it will happen, And I really just want to let students and families know that there can be some type of resolution to the problems that feel like they're never ending. There can be some type of way out and way forward if all the parties can really listen and understand each other. And for me, it was because two NYU film grads decided to put cameras on my life that I could see what was happening in that moment and I could understand my parents and what they were saying. But sometimes we don't have the luxury of seeing ourselves from another perspective. So if there's any way that the students and the families that are watching this film can really take a moment to take stock of their own lives and listen to my mother's story or my father's story or my own, and if they can use that to relate to young people or their own mothers or their own fathers, I would be so happy if they could use that film to really create a conversation about things that they haven't been able to talk about, maybe about places where they've been hurt, or things that they have felt cannot be resolved, or problems that they feel are never ending. If they can use this film to start that conversation, I think there can be a lot more healing amongst families, and there can be a lot more understanding. And I understand that these things take time. So maybe at 17, 18, 19, 20, so many things are changing, and it can take a while for these conversations to happen. But if there's any type of reflection that happens, or any type of, awakening or awareness that can be gained, I think it starts with listening to the people that love you the most, and truly trying to see the world through their own eyes, and using that as a place to start healing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that you said is it takes time. It takes time. I think when you're 17 to 20 years old, you don't see, of course, we're talking to you now, the way you saw things then, you don't see the same way right now. So I think that that's beautiful and wonderful advice to give to the youth. And yeah, so then this brings me, as we're getting closer to the end of this conversation, I want to know, or a lot of people are probably on their mind, is what are you kind of doing now? I know that you said you're teaching, but I know that you have some other things that you're working on, and people are probably wondering how, if you're going to Ghana, like what's going on with you and your family and your projects currently. So in addition to teaching, because you said earlier you teach K to 6. So you can talk a little bit about that.
I can. So I really loved healing work. And as you can see, I've also had the privilege, and I've also had the benefit of healing from a lot of things that I've experienced, and making sense of a lot of pain that I had. Some of the things in the film that you see, the moments where I'm crying, of feeling like I don't have a home or have a place, I've healed from a lot of those feelings. And I've healed from a lot of that confusion about where I was and what I was supposed to be doing. So I've taken that, and I have started to teach people how to do that through meditation, and started to really instruct people on the ways that they can use their own minds and use their own understanding to really create resolution, healing, and peace within themselves. So I've done that with my company, the Aligned Voice Company. I teach and record meditations for people. I write on mindfulness and how to use that in our daily lives. And I can say that I'm starting to think also about how mindfulness can heal intergenerational issues, and can really create more peace within families. So I can say that's a direction that I'm going in, because it's something that's so important to me. But healing with the Aligned Voice and teaching people about meditation has been an opportunity for me to use my story to show people that it is possible, that they can do it as well, and they can do it on their own. And I can also say that, being on platforms like the Grapevine and using all the things that I learned in college, all of those, women's and gender studies, all of that Africana studies knowledge that I took in college, and using all of the cultural lessons that I got from my dad, and understanding my mother's story, all of those things to speak on Black, African diasporic issues, and to share my perspective, has also been an amazing blessing, because people can see all of the ways that those perspectives inform how I believe Black women and Black people should live and should be treated in this world. And so I'm still peculiarly interested in healing Black people. I'm still specifically interested in working and healing Black women. And that is something that I'm going to do forever. I'm always going to be teaching how Black women can use everything that they have about themselves to be enlightened, to transform, and to be as powerful as they can be. because I'm an example of a Black woman that got a chance to do that. And I was raised by a Black woman that got a chance to do that. So I'm excited to continue doing that with the Aligned Voice. And anyone who is interested can follow me on Instagram at Rockyatu and visit www.thealignedvoice.com to get my meditations, to read the things that I write, and invite me to lead a meditation for you. I think you would enjoy it.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. And congratulations on all of that work that you're doing. I know that it's a lot to be a young person and doing, doing all of this, building out this company. So yes, we will definitely share those details with everyone so they can get in touch with you. And also too, wondering what's going on with Ghana, I guess home, which is also home. What's going on there? Do you have anything planned?
Yes, so I went to Ghana in 2019 before COVID and all of those things happened. And I had a wonderful time. Like I split my time. It was my first time going to Ghana on my own, you know, no, it was my second time. I can't say that. It was my second time going to Ghana on my own. And every time you go to Ghana or you go back to your home, as an adult, you understand, one, you're never really considered an adult. There's no time where you are just an adult and you're free to move freely. It can't happen. So I had that experience where I was just like cleaning and doing chores and checking up on family and just being Rockyatu, the daughter, the cousin, the little sister, constantly. That role doesn't change no matter how old you are. But I can also say that I started to see another side of Ghana. So the entrepreneurial, the side of Ghana that has a lot of, first generation people moving back, the side of Ghana that has a lot of young Black professionals moving back. So I saw that side of Ghana as well. So I fulfilled my family obligations so that I could also get into the more entrepreneurial, creative, artistic movements that were going on in Ghana. And I can say, I am so excited about it. If I can take the Aligned Voice to Ghana, I would love to. Like if I can teach meditations in Ghana and, continue to do some healing work in Accra with those types of communities that I'm a part of, I would love to. So those are where my plans are going now. I would love to teach meditation, wellness, healing work while I'm there and really use some more of the work that I've done here, some more of the, understanding of Black diasporic experiences, use that to really heal and bridge some of that relationship for those people that are there. So it's on my mind. It's a long-term vision. I can't leave and do that now. And I can't say that I'm just going to quit my job and do it tomorrow, but it's something that is on the horizon for me that I am manifesting and that I would love to ultimately spend my time doing. So I'm laying the foundations now so that I can be set and I can teach meditation to Ghanaian and Ghanaian Americans in Ghana for as long as possible. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm building the foundations to be able to do that.
So wonderful and such an inspiration. And again, I'm just thinking of the film and just the growth. And just for anybody who's watching this, your story is not over, right? We're just thinking oh my gosh, this is we're so focused and laser focused on what's happening right here and now. But that's not, there's more chapters to go. And so you're just talking, I totally feel like this is just awesome. And I'm so happy that you're manifesting it. And you're aware that it's going to take time, to get to those things that you want. And those things that are very much needed within our communities here in the United States and also back home. So yeah, it's just awesome and wonderful. And as I keep saying, I'm going to close this out, but I'm just thinking again of the quote that I think one of your relatives or family friends, when you guys were sitting down together and you and your father had gotten into an argument or some kind of dispute, And you were like, I don't even know what I did. And then you were like, I just want to go back home. And he says, here is also home too. He said, here's also home too. And I just love that. So when you're talking about Ghana, and this is just a part of who you are, this being in kind of this gray area, this space where you can dip back and forth in America and Ghana, and then also that space in between too. It's a very, it can be challenging, but also very beautiful. And so before us, I'm just seeing all of the beauty of being that type of person. And I think it's very inspirational to not only myself, but so many other people, young and old, who also have similar backgrounds or who can relate to these themes. So thank you so much.
If I can convince someone that home is within the mind, then I think that so much of us can feel that sense of ease, that sense of home as being within us, right? As we are here, the here that he's talking about is within us. So if I can convince just one person that home is within you, that it is not attached to any borders or passports or places where you are, then I could definitely begin to start showing the ways that you can live anywhere in the world, the ways that two, Ghanaian people can move across the Atlantic to a city in the Bronx and start a life. If you can understand home is within you, then you can understand why someone could live anywhere in the world. And no matter where you were, you could thrive and be successful. You could do it in Dakar, or you could do it in Iceland. So if I could convince more Black people that that's possible, then, I could be so satisfied with the work. But thank you. That is what I will continue to do.
Yes, keep going. There's so much more unpacking to do. So many more great conversations. But yeah, let's keep the dialogue open. And yeah, thank you so much for speaking with us. Again, for everyone, this is a part of the African Film Festival educational resource. And we're so happy to have Rockyatu Otoo here with us.